2017. WFP continued to work with the government and UNHCR to support the relocation of refugees residing at the buffer zone between Mozambique and Zimbabwe to Tungugara refugee camp, as well as to provide food assistance to these refugees residing in the camp, thanks to funding from the United States and China. Approximately 11,300 refugees received food assistance in 2017. Moreover, in partnership with GOAL and UNHCR, WFP has also piloted livelihood activities such as chicken rearing and agriculture at the Tungugara camp. We continue to provide our lean season assistance in the most food insecure districts as determined by the ZIMVAC annual rural livelihood assessment, taking into consideration government and other partners' response capacities. The 2017-2018 lean season assistance, which was extended for 1 month this year in order to incentivize early harvest and provide continued support, is just wrapping up now. In March, we provided assistance to approximately 479,000 people. In 2017, WFP rolled out its digital platform for beneficiary and transfer management. This platform is called SCOPE. By the end of 2017, more than 1.2 million people were registered in SCOPE, covering all of our transfer programs. Furthermore, in partnership with UNICEF and the Ministry of Labour and Social Welfare, we extended the use of SCOPE on a pilot basis to the government's harmonized social cash transfer program in Lushinga, setting the stage for a potential scale-up and development of an integrated beneficiary management system for different types of social safety net interventions. Distinguished guests, to achieve maximum impact, we strive to strengthen the linkages between the activities under the CSP. This also means increasing impact not just for SDG 2, but for broader sustainable development. The SDGs, as you are all aware, endorsed by every UN member state and recognized to be universal in their application, fully recognize that an achievement of zero hunger, in particular, is only possible through a common parallel investment in initiatives that address root causes, resilience, and acute needs concurrently. In full recognition of this, WFP, as one of the first agencies to align its corporate strategy to the 2030 agenda, is therefore working in a deliberate attempt to bridge the traditional divide between humanitarian and development programs. Our program is based on evidence generated through a three-pronged approach process upon which humanitarian and development actors are able to identify areas for investment ranging from asset creation, weather insurance, smallholder farmer support and access to markets, nutrition advocacy and support, resilience building, capacity strengthening, social protection, logistics and supply chain services. This information is used to target and prioritize districts for different interventions and reinforce the relationship between resilience building and development programs. And this is done through seasonal livelihood programming and community-based participatory planning. I spoke already about how the farmers assisted through FFA are being connected to local schools to support school meals, and how our support to smallholder farmers is paired with our own procurement platform to feed into our lean season assistance for the most vulnerable in Zimbabwe. As we continue to support the government in the relaunch and the development of the homegrown school feeding program, the important linkages between agriculture, nutrition, education and gender equality will continue to be emphasized and strengthened. Building on our tripartite partnership with FAO and UNICEF on strengthening food and nutrition security interventions, WFP is engaged in discussions on a partnership agreement with the University of Zimbabwe. The partnership will establish a nutrition research agenda with the aim of progressing the SDG agenda and facilitate research to generate results towards evidence-based nutrition programming. Under the CSP last year, we started preparations for the launch of our AG4 Rural Resilience Program, which provides access to reliable and timely climate information to reduce vulnerability to climate-related hazards and introduce weather index insurance and promote savings and access to credits for smallholder farmers. With AG4 funding from the Swiss and complementary FFA funding from the United States and France, we are not just providing immediate food assistance, but strengthening livelihoods, building resilience to future shocks, and empowering communities to move beyond recovery or year-to-year planning by strengthening local economies and infrastructure. Distinguished guests, in Zimbabwe, WFP is prioritizing and promoting gender equality through its program interventions, its advocacy, both at the interagency and at public levels, and through hiring and staffing policies. The CSP places special emphasis on advancing gender equality through the promotion of women in leadership positions and decision-making roles, both within the organization and in its activities, such as in the FFA and community-based participative planning. With a focus on evidence and cross-cutting impact, we seek to maximize the impact of our gender-based interventions. The interlinked and complementary nature of all our activities and strategic outcomes under the CSP calls for genuine multi-annual partnerships, and indeed, none of the strategic outcomes, let alone the achievement of SDG 2 and 17, can be achieved by us without the strong support of and close collaboration with our partners. Partnership, therefore, drove the design of the CSP strategic outcomes and activities. The vision of the 2030 Agenda and the development and launch of our CSP have created an incredible enabling environment here in Zimbabwe for two transformational partnerships. The approach advocated for in the CSP is one where agencies move away from cutting out a slice of the global humanitarian and development agenda to claim for its own, but rather prompts a partnership approach, identifying how each agency contributing to the same SDG as many of its partners provide complementary and in terms of the resources, capacities and tools that it has to offer. Partnership it's not just a transactional exchange. It means...
And with all of you. And I want to really acknowledge George Campbell, the FLC chair, and of course the WFP representative, country director, the World Vision representative, and also other colleagues from the World Food Program, UN system, development partner, and the media. Indeed, as I said, I'm very delighted and pleased to be here. And much has been said. If you digest the expression and content from three really eloquent speakers, the WFP rep highlighting the detailed work on what WFP has done over the year, and as well the change and safety and strategy. There is an immense element to our job, and also the acknowledgement from the partner, the World Vision, in terms of how they have worked together, and how this partnership is helping in terms of improving the situation and life of Zimbabwean population. That's what the center of the work is. And the full acknowledgement by George about from the government angle is really commendable. And I want to really first commend the WFP leadership for this whole shift in leadership approach, the strategy and thinking. WFP, having worked with WFP many years, I can tell you WFP has been transforming itself in a bigger way and in a really massive way. A lot of time WFP is seen as just taking the bags and delivering the food and feeding the people and okay, saving lives and etc. Very important. But it does far beyond that. And I think that is an oversimplification of the understanding of the work of WFP. As you gather from the message from the country director. In the context of Zimbabwe, the UN, we partner with the government and we created a vision of what is the priority of Zimbabwe. And we brought that bigger vision of government priority and development challenge in Zimbabwe, us as a UN system and the government together, across ministry, civil society, development partner, into 6 areas of priorities. And of course there may be more, but we sum that into 6. And just to give you a quick rundown on that, the number 1 was food and nutrition security. That was a fundamental issue. The second was the issue related to various areas of service delivery, health, education, protection. Third is the whole issue of gender, promoting gender equality. Because if we don't promote gender, then we leave the whole opportunity and half of the population. So then we're not doing the job properly. The fourth area was related to HIV and AIDS, etc. And fifth area we talked about is poverty, because we really need to put a priority on poverty. And lastly, the whole issue of governance, democratic process, promotion of human rights, these 6 areas. Now, if you hear carefully, although the stress was made, WFP's engagement in terms of SDG 2, hunger, or food and nutrition, but in the context of that operation, WFP touched on almost all these 6 areas we have put a priority. And I want to also say, the proactiveness of the WFP leadership and the WFP team is really commendable. Thank you very much, Abby. And I feel honored and really very, very pleased of the team, the UN team, and more so we're talking about WFP and the WFP's deliverables in the context of the challenges Zimbabwe faced the last 2 years of drought in 16 and 15 and 16, one of the worst drought in 35 years, affecting close to 4 million people. Up there, WP was there in every villages and community, reaching every hungry person and making them to be part of this, global citizen and global Zimbabwe and reaching out, and no one went hungry. I think that's a very commendable action, and I feel very honored and part of the UN system for the work of WFP in this. And of course, the other UN agencies together working. The second point I want to mention is, which is often doesn't come out strongly, is the work of WFP in terms of preventing hunger or building capacity of the community to address hunger, or if there is a drought or those issues. The reference to all these small grain, sorghum, millets, procurement and plantation. Why is he talking that? Because that is what helps them to sustain when the drought or those adverse climate condition happens. And unfortunately, Zimbabwe, whole Southern Africa region has been tremendously affected by this climate change. Not any fault of Zimbabwe, unfortunately, but it's the global phenomena. And taking measures to adapt to those changes is fundamental. If we don't do that, we are in trouble. So creating a market by buying locally, helping farmers to have seeds, and teaching them that there is a potential to cultivate is important. I personally have visited some of these programs myself, and I've seen dam being built to withhold water. Farmers have been taught to diversify crops, and also especially women groups have been taught to prepare for these alternatives and to generate different types of income for the household. These are part of the empowerment, part of the resilience building, and part of the helping communities and households to help themselves. So the whole CSP is core of that CSP is this: shifting from just the point which was mentioned, feeding people, to helping them to help themselves. And the operational strength of WFP and the robustness, the quick response capacity, and identifying where the poorest are, where the most vulnerable are. The reference was made of vulnerability analysis. That's what it is. Identifying where the poorest are, and who are those poor, why they are poor, and using that knowledge to interject intervention. In fact, the reference was also made, the basis of the WFP work on vulnerability analysis has been a foundation for the specific resilience program, which is being run with support from European Union, Sweden, and UK, and in partnership with UNDP. And WFP has been a tool, principal tool, an instrument to support that. So the other element of the strategic plan is the innovation. By the time I started working WFP many years ago, and we used to only depend completely on food, and that's being shipped from other countries. And people used to talk about displacement of local markets and etc. Now WFP buys 70–80% of the food in the region or in the country, or it now uses over 40% of the cast in terms of